Alright guys, we're back with more fantasy baseball content, and here, I'm going to help you go through your waiver wire so you can pick out the best and most important players to add to your teams. This is a really important week for the waiver wire because we're about to hit the All-Star break, so there's just not going to be that much baseball played over the next week, which makes right now a really good time to get a lot of good players while your league mates might be sleeping and get them on your teams before the second half playoff championship surge that's about to happen. This also weirdly seems like a great week to pick up pitchers off the waiver wire. So if you guys need pitching help in your fantasy teams, make sure you're watching closely. The first player we're going to talk about is a pitcher, starting pitcher on the Yankees, Cam Schlittler. The Yankees called up Schlittler to make his major league debut this past Wednesday, with Clark Schmidt going on the IL needing Tommy John surgery. Schlittler went 5 1/3 innings against the Mariners. He struck out 7, walked 2, allowed 3 earned runs. But one of those earned runs came after he left the game, when he allowed a double to Julio Rodriguez, then he got pulled, and a reliever gave up a home run to Randy Arozarena. Schlittler, name you have to say very, very carefully, Schlittler, bad for 2 reasons actually, is defined by what's a really plus fastball. It got up to 100 miles an hour in this debut. The first time any Yankees reached 100 miles per hour this season, which is amazing for a team that good and that well constructed. Fangraphs gave it a 60 on the 20 to 80 scouting scale while he was a prospect, and again, that pitch, that is Schlittler's out pitch. The fastball is his thing. 100 miles an hour, great shape, tough angle for the hitters to square up. That's the pitch that he's able to lean on and create the foundation for the rest of his repertoire. The bit of a problem though with Schlittler right now is there isn't that much of a rest of a repertoire. He had a slider that was good, sat around 92 miles an hour, had good bite, used it against hitters from both sides of the plate. But then his other out pitch as he was coming up as a prospect has always been this big curveball. But I think it's a little bit too big of a curveball. It's a little bit too loopy. It's got a big hump on it. The hitters seem to really be able to know when that pitch is coming. That was his pitch as a prospect that he used to get lefties out. But he kind of shied away from using it in this debut, which again, I think is telling that he's not really comfortable with it yet. The team might not trust it yet. And in response to this, the Mariners did stack their lineup in this start against Schlittler with left-handed batters, and he struggled to get those guys out consistently. They drove up his pitch count, and he couldn't really close out the at-bats. And 3 of the 4 hits he allowed, including 2 that drove in runs, were to left-handed batters. The first right-handed batter Schlittler allowed a hit to in this game was Julio Rodriguez in that 6th inning that he wound up being pulled the 3rd time around the batting order. So again, the fastball and the slider and a mixed in a sweeper here and there are very good against the righties, but we're still waiting to see if that curveball can be enough to get the lefties out. Still, I wanted to lead with Schlittler here because that fastball is so special that it will be viable against all hitters and something he can lean on for something like 35-40% of his pitches. And then it's just about those breaking balls kind of filing in and being enough. And he has real opportunity in this Yankees rotation with Clark Schmidt out for the season, with Luis Heel just starting a rehab assignment, and with Marcus Stroman still in the rotation anyway, who could easily be bumped by Schlittler if he's good enough over this next, month of a trial period. So paying attention to Schlittler, basically want him on all my teams in 12-team leagues, and I'm still waiting and seeing in shallower. Next up is Colt Keith on the Detroit Tigers. Keith is sneakily having an amazing season this year. He has an 800 OPS, and I feel like nobody's talking about him despite his standing as kind of a top-ish prospect heading into last year. Even better than that, because he had not that good of an April. Since May 1st, he has almost a 900 OPS. It's in the top 25 of all hitters in baseball, and it's better than Pete Armstrong, Corbin Carroll, and Kyle Tucker. Bottom line, we're working on over 2 months of baseball where Colt Keith has been one of the best hitters in the entire league. And with being actually a good hitter results-wise, he's totally elevated his game this year. Because he was not very good as a rookie. He was never a league average hitter. He was really bad to start the year, had a risk of demotion, then got hot in the middle, then went really bad again at the end. Just kind of felt like Colt Keith was fighting with himself, trying to find a new approach. He'd always been more of an all-fields hitter with a power alley to the opposite field. It seemed like he was trying really hard to get out front and pull the ball, and it wasn't really working that well. But this season, the big thing that's helped Keith elevate his game is that he's been much more patient and much more selective at the plate. A 30% chase rate last year has gone down to a 22% chase rate this year, as he is swinging less often while seeing more pitches inside the strike zone. But another huge adjustment that Keith has made is avoiding pitches in the shadow of the zone, something I talk about on this channel a lot for young hitters. Not swinging at pitches that are known as pitcher's pitches, right on the outskirts of the plate. Instead, letting those pitches go by, not being afraid to fight through an at-bat after a pitcher makes a good pitch and gets strike 1 on you. A huge adjustment for these hitters to make because a lot of pitchers in the minor league just simply can't do that. They're not on the level of these major league guys who can hit spots whenever they want. And waiting and seeking out and identifying better those pitches to hit has helped him hit the ball much harder. He's basically doubled his barrel rate, made that better than league average. He's improved his hard hit rate about 8 percentage points, went from below league average to a bit above league average. And it is really important to remember about Keith as he makes all of these changes, takes all of these steps forward as a player, is he didn't really play much minor league baseball. He was drafted as a high schooler in 2020, kind of flew through the upper minors in 2022 and 2023, only played 239 games before making the Tigers out of spring training before 2024 last season. The other thing about Keith that definitely slowed his development a little bit is that he still doesn't have a defensive home. Last year he was okay at second, but this year the Tigers got Gleyber Torres. He's mixed in a little bit at second when Torres was injured, also some at first, some at third, just kind of wherever he can find a spot, some DH as well. But the fact of the matter is, right now, his bat is so good, the Tigers are not taking him out of the lineup. So he is having opportunities to find defensive home. I don't know if he will do it, but he's still very young. And while he's hitting like this, he's going to be in their lineup every day, and we should be paying attention to him in all league types. Next up is Brandon Woodruff from the Brewers. Woodruff has always been a star, a superstar, basically an ace for his entire career. Then had a really serious shoulder injury. Has taken a long time to work back. I was very doubtful of him working back. He didn't look very good in his rehab starts. His velocity was down. I didn't really trust it. I didn't even advocate stashing for him. Then he came back last week and had an amazing first start of his season against the Marlins, where he went 6 innings, struck out 8, didn't walk any batters, only allowed 1 run, and it was just on a solo home run. He was in control this entire game. And then Woodruff just struck out 10 more batters in his last start against the Nationals, which is amazing after the layoff that Woodruff had, not pitching for all of last year and missing the entire first half of this season. And the most amazing thing about Woodruff's return is that during this process, he completely transformed himself as a pitcher. When Woodruff was his best back in the day when he first came up and just pitching through his prime, he was a power pitcher to the highest degree. Fastballs, sinkers, pinpoint command, just bearing down on hitters with upper 90s velocity, daring them to hit it. He was the epitome again of a power pitcher, and he was amazing at that. But again, I have to reiterate how serious his shoulder injury was. It was a tear of the anterior capsule in his right shoulder, which is the same injury that destroyed Johan Santana's career, Rich Harden's career, and more recently, a former top prospect, Daniel Espino's career. It's a very difficult injury to come back from. So that's a big reason why Woodruff really took his time, having nearly 2 years off before getting back to the spot he's in right now. But even more amazing than just actually getting back on the mound and being effective, he transformed himself as a pitcher over that time. He came back with a new color that was a weapon in that first start he made, mixed in a few sweepers as well, and all of his old pitches that he used to have had totally new pitch shapes, especially his fastball. It looks like it has a much better shape than it ever did. That's a big deal for Woodruff right now because I don't think he's ever going to get back to the upper 90s velocity. The same guy that used to sit 96, 97, 98 miles per hour was just around 92, 93, 94 in that first start. So with the velocity coming down, command and pitch shape is much more important. But he had both of those, and he had both of them looking really good in that first start. Shame on me for doubting Brandon Woodruff. So impressed by his return. He needs to be picked up in every single league right now. Now, I told you guys this was a big pitcher episode. We have another one coming up here. Yuri Perez on the Marlins. And frankly, Perez should not be on this list. I didn't think I was going to have to do a big breakdown of Perez because he was such a big pitching prospect and was so amazing in his rookie year in 2023. But going through his roster rates on Fantrax, Yahoo, CBS, ESPN, he's not rostered enough in any of these websites. Even Fantrax, which has the deepest and sharpest leagues on the internet, it's only about 80%. ESPN is under 30%. What are we doing here, guys? I know we had some really rough starts coming off the injured list, but this is a guy at his peak could be one of the best pitchers in the league. And now we're seeing him return to form in his last few starts, where he's thrown 11 innings, struck out 15 batters, only walked 1, and only given up 1 earned run in his last 2 starts. And that 1 earned run was a wall scraper hit by Matt McClain in Great American Ballpark in a game where the Marlins blew the Reds out of the water. And the big thing with Yuri Perez taking this step forward, returning from Tommy John surgery again with those very rough starts at the beginning, the stuff was always there. He came back with the velocity, he came back still with his great pitch movement, but he didn't have his command. And we've learned over the years, some great work by fantasy baseball legend Jeff Zimmerman on this, is that a pitcher's velocity and stuff come back sooner from Tommy John surgery than their command. In these last few starts from Perez, especially that most recent one against the Reds, his command was pristine. It was amazing. He was picking off corners with that slider, then burying that in the sweeper against the right-handed batters, dotting, placing his fastball in much better spots, and also just the idea of trusting that fastball more in the strike zone because it's still sitting 98 miles an hour and forcing swings and misses left and right with a great shape on it. He's the man. He's great. There's a chance you get a top 25 pitcher rest of season here in Yuri Perez. And I understand right now the ERA is still right at 4, literally exactly at 4, 4.00. So this might be your last chance to pick him up in some of those leagues like I mentioned. He should not be on the waiver wire anywhere. I don't care if you're playing in a 6-team league. You have to find a way to get Yuri Perez on your roster. Pitcher week rolls on. We have another one is Brian Bayo from the Red Sox. Bayo has had a bit of a long, winding, obscure road to turn himself into a viable major league starting pitcher, but I do think that time is finally here. First of all, on the season, he has a 3.27 ERA, which before I did the research for this video, if you asked me what Brian Bayo's ERA was this year, I definitely would not have said an ERA that low. So that's one big check mark for him. He's still not allowing runs. But his last few starts have been especially great. He's coming off a 10 strikeout complete game against the Rockies, the first complete game of his entire career, and just 1 strikeout off his single game career high. And since the start of June, he has a 2.78 ERA over 45 innings, which has spanned 6 starts. And of those 6 starts, 5 of them have been quality starts. And the big thing here with Bello is that this hot stretch since June began has coincided with him developing a new cutter and adding it to his repertoire. The Red Sox have always really tried to hide Bello's fastball, only throwing it about 7% of the time last season, and in turn pushing up his sinker usage because the sinker probably is his best pitch. But without having a four-seam fastball against left-handed batters, he was forced to throw that sinker, and lefties torched that sinker last year. Even though it's a good pitch, they had a 570 slug and a 460 WOBA against it. Again, it got crushed. But if you guys take in a lot of other baseball media, spend a lot of time on baseball, pitching Twitter specifically, you might hear people talk about what's called the fastball triangle. That's when a pitcher can throw a four-seamer, a sinker or a two-seamer, and a cutter for 3 different fastballs that can form a triangle on their pitch charts. It gives hitters 3 things to think about when something, hard is coming at them. Pause. Now, with this cutter for Bello, a new pitch that he can command, use early in counts, use when he's behind in counts, just use it whenever he wants to either nab a strike or get some soft contact. It's something new for the lefties to think about that they never had to think about before. There have even been a few starts over this, month plus where Bello's looked like a much better pitcher, where that cutter has been the primary pitch for him in individual games against left-handed batters. It's a big deal for a new pitch that he's literally just inserted into his repertoire. It really shows the importance of it, that he's already willing to throw it more than any other pitch against a hitter from one side of the plate. It also sets up his changeup really well, which is his out pitch, something he does mostly use against the lefties, will mix in against the righties, but against those righties, he has a great sinker and a fine sweeper, so it's good enough to get them out most of the time anyway. I really think this is a pitcher who always had really good stuff, but was kind of raw. Getting a new tool here, learning how to fit into his toolbox, and really just learning how to pitch in a more efficient way. Bello's really always had the talent. It was kind of just about waiting for him to find his stride, and he has done it now. He's a guy who's getting looks for me in 12-team leagues. Still get worried about starting him at home in Fenway Park because of how tough of a park that is to pitch in. But I really can't deny the talent right now. Next up is another Red Sox, is Masataka Yoshida. Wanted to mix in one more hitter during pitcher week, but I don't think Yoshida is getting enough credit right now for the hitter he has been his entire major league career. He was just activated this week off the injured list for the first time this season after dealing with a really weird shoulder injury, but it did feel like that Yoshida's timeline got pushed back because of all the craziness with the Rafael Devers situation, because Yoshida is a DH, he cannot play the field. This shoulder injury made it much worse. There were times over the last few months as he was rehabbing where apparently he just literally couldn't throw a baseball at all, which the Red Sox kind of wanted him to start playing the field a little bit because, again, Devers was going to be the full-time DH. There was drama. It was weird. Devers is gone. Red Sox are hitting well. All water under the bridge. But now that Yoshida's back, he's going to be reinserted into this Red Sox lineup every single time they face a right-handed pitcher as their DH. In his first game back, he went 3 for 4. He had a double, a run scored, an RBI, 3 hard hit balls. It was a good reminder of the type of hitter Yoshida is. Because when you look back over his major league career since he came stateside and joined the Red Sox 2 years ago, he has a 287, 344, 435 slash line. That's really good for a hitter. But again, have to say it, important to note, he will not start against left-handed pitchers. He never has in his career, and I don't think he ever will. The Red Sox also have a bit of a logjam right now with 4 outfielders between Jarren Duran, Ceddanne Rafaela, Wilyer Abreu, and Roman Anthony, with some of those guys probably rotating into that DH spot because a lot of them hit lefty as well. But I do expect Yoshida, after some kind of trade, clears this thing out, to hit against right-handed pitchers every single time the rest of the season. And with that, especially in a daily league, he's a great option right now. Now, the last player and pitcher on the big list is Slade Ciccone, starting pitcher on the Guardians. I featured Ciccone a few times on the series this year, talking about waiver wire pickups, talking about underrated deep league pitchers, but he just keeps pitching well, and I want to give my Paisan more shine because he's coming off an amazing 7-inning, 9-strikeout, 2-earned run game against the Astros in Houston, a tough place to pitch, and kind of just keeps moving forward, becoming a really important middle-of-the-rotation cog for a Guardians team that's really struggled for most of this season. And now we're at the point where Ciccone has a 3.44 ERA in the season in over 2 months of work, and a strikeout rate that's nearing 25%, which is better than league average. That's just a good pitcher. Someone who you really should be using on the bottom of your bench in 12-team leagues as a streaming option when you like his matchups. I also will say, him facing an Astros lineup, while in our brains does seem scary. One, it's just not really that great right now without Yordan Alvarez and even without Jeremy Pena at the moment. And two, especially for a guy like Ciccone, the Astros don't really have any real left-handed batters because his slider is his out pitch. It's by far his best performing pitch. It's his swing and miss pitch. It's the one he really likes to lean on, especially used to hide his fastball because his fastball gets hit pretty hard. But in this start against the Astros, which is a good time to try things because they did have a couple of not-so-good lefties in the lineup, he did push up the usage of his curveball and changeup more than he has for most of this season. So something good to watch there. I do like that curveball. It's nice that he can mix in his changeup and spot it when it's on right. I'm definitely cautiously optimistic about Slade Ciccone. I know some of his underlying stats don't look good. Hitters hit the ball very hard against him, mostly because that fastball doesn't miss any bats. But if he can just promote the use of that curveball and changeup a little bit, they both have solid movement profiles. He can't really command the changeup when he kind of looks pretty good. I like what I see from Giacone and think he can be a good middle-of-the-rotation guy for the rest of the season. Now, that's the end of the big list, but as I do every single week in this waiver wire video, I now do some breakout sections for you guys in shallow leagues, deep leagues, talk about some minor leaguers, some injured players, and also some players to drop. But to start out the next section, players that are not rostered enough in shallow leagues. I'm using ESPN rostership rates for this, because I feel like most of us are playing in very standard ESPN points leagues. So some guys, they're on too many waiver wires. First up, Devin Williams, 74% rostered. That should be 100%. Devin Williams for the last 2 months has been the elite closer the Yankees and all of us expect him to be heading into the year. April was really bad. Tough to pitch after a trade like that, going from Milwaukee to New York, but he looks totally fine. Even better than fine. He looks actually unhittable and amazing. As the closer for one of the best teams in the league, and Luke Weaver's on the shelf, will not eat into any save opportunities going forward. If you need relief help, if you need saves, if you need a closer, Devin Williams is the guy in a shallow league. Then Vinny Pasquantino, 72%. Same idea. Bad April. One of the best 30 hitters in baseball since the end of April. Should not be available in 28% of leagues. This next one is a little bit more egregious. Michael Busch, only 52% rostered in ESPN leagues. Michael Busch statistically is one of the best hitters in baseball. He's got one of the highest OPS in the whole league, around 950. The counting stats are insane. The Cubs lineup is insane. He's hitting a home run half the games he plays. Like, this guy is incredible. Why is he on the waiver wire in 50% of leagues? Then Lucas Giolito, 43%. Lucas Giolito came off the IL, got blown up a few times, but now has been one of the best pitchers in the league over the last month. I don't think he's going to continue to perform like a top 10 pitcher, but Lucas Giolito is awesome. He was in my last top 50 pitcher rankings, and I was probably low on him. He's probably a top 40, top 35 pitcher rest of the season. He's really, really good right now. Then we have a crew of young hitters here. First up, starting with Ceddanne Rafaela, 31%. Again, since the end of April, Ceddanne Rafaela has like an 850 OPS. He's hitting homers, he's stealing bases, he's pulling his fly balls, he's playing most of the time. Again, the Red Sox have that outfield logjam. I think it gets worked out in the next 2 weeks. But Rafaela is amazing. Should not be available in 70% of leagues. Same with his teammate Roman Anthony in 27% of leagues. If you guys pull anything from this section, is that you should pick up Roman Anthony in any league you're playing in. He did not have a good first 2 weeks in the majors. A lot was put on his plate as #1 prospect in baseball. They trade Rafael Devers. Here, kid, now you're hitting third. He's turned the corner. He makes amazing swing decisions. He hits the ball really hard. He's a really good athlete. There's nothing stopping Roman Anthony from being a very clear top 30 outfielder for the rest of the season. 10-team league, 8-team league, I do not care. Add Roman Anthony, put him on your team, because he's going to have a ridiculously good second half. He might win the Rookie of the Year award. He's going to have that good of a second half. Then we have 2 other guys at 20%. Addison Barger on the Blue Jays and Nick Kurtz on the Athletics. 2 guys who are just tearing the cover off the ball for 2 months now. Barger's eligible third base and outfield. Great piece for any fantasy team. Power, speed, patience, athleticism, great swing decisions. Nick Kurtz, some of the most prodigious power in baseball, playing in one of the best hitters parks in baseball. Ridiculous these guys are this widely available. Then the last guy, Jack Caglianone, 17%. I know the stats look horrible. Statistically, he's been one of the worst hitters in baseball this season, but I know it's going to click at some point. He had a 460-foot home run last week, and it's going to happen for him. I know it is. He's too much power for it not to. Next up, we have the stash list. Guys either in the minor leagues who are ready to come up and make an impact in the majors soon, or players returning from injuries you should be stashing on your roster if you have the open spot. First up, the weekly stash list. We might have to name the stash list after this guy, Bubba Chandler. Just had a great start in AAA. He was like so excited. He was screaming coming off the mound after strikeouts after a really bad stretch for 2 months. The Pirates are going to trade people at the deadline. Bubba Chandler has to be up soon, right? He has to be. He just has to be. Then we have a big group of pitchers returning from injury soon. Luis Gil's about to make his first rehab start for the Yankees. He was great last year. I think people are underrating Luis Gil, defending Rookie of the Year. He's going to come back and strike a lot of people out. Shane McClanahan just made his first very short rehab start for the Rays, but he is going to come back at some point. The Rays are making a playoff push. We're probably going to get a really good version of Shane McClanahan at some point in August. On a very different ilk, Kyle Bradish is going to start the rehab assignment soon for the Orioles. Someone else who I think is very underrated. Has been a great pitcher the last few years on the Orioles before going for Tommy John surgery last year. The Orioles are, of course, out of it, but they're going to let Bradish pitch towards the end of the year so he can build up a workload heading into next season when they, I think, intend to compete again. Probably. So keep an eye on Bradish. Then Michael King through a bullpen session, getting close to a rehab assignment. Probably still at least a month before we see him again. Same with Blake Snell, similar timeline to King, waiting for the news on that rehab assignment. Then a pair of Astros, Christian Javier and Luis Garcia. I feel like it's been a million years since we've seen either of these guys pitch at the big league level. Garcia just made his first short rehab assignment. Javier is due for one probably next week around then. So keep an eye on those 2 guys, especially in deeper leagues. Then also want to mention, this is a good week to start paying attention to some guys that can get a benefit from the trade deadline, like a non-obvious benefit, and these are mostly deeper league guys, so be aware of this. Someone like Owen Casey on the Cubs, who's definitely a big league caliber outfielder, has crazy power, 114-mile-an-hour max exit velocity in AAA, with a lot of strikeouts, but again, big-time power. Just too many good Cubs outfielders, no DH available for him to mix into. But he could really get traded this week as the Cubs look for a pitcher, so Casey could mix into a team's outfield in the second half. Then think about some bullpens where late leverage relievers are going to be traded. Maybe Griffin Jacks on the Twins winds up going to another team, becoming their closer like the Phillies. Maybe Raisel Iglesias gets traded. Someone like Pierce Johnson becomes a closer in Atlanta if you really desperately need saves. Same with possibly David Bednar and Dennis Santana, Caleb Ferguson all getting traded from the Pirates. I don't know who'd be their closer, but it's not going to be that good of a situation. But those are the kinds of situations to look for this time of year. Then also some prospects who could get chances after the trade deadline. CJ Kayfus, a powerful first baseman and corner outfielder in Cleveland in AAA. They're probably going to trade Carlos Santana. They're going to try to trade Lade Thomas if they can. They might trade Steven Kwan. He'll probably get a chance after the trade deadline. Same with John Kenzie Noel, another chance. And Harry Ford. Harry Ford would be a much better catching option for the Mariners than Mitch Garver. He can steal bases. He can hit for power. He's very patient. He's a great defender. I think there's a good chance we see Harry Ford make his major league debut during the second half. And also just pay attention to the Brewers, because the Brewers have Logan Henderson, Chad Patrick, and Tobias Myers pitching in AAA right now. With Jose Quintana in their rotation, like, they're probably going to wind up moving him. They're probably going to try to move him to get one of those young guys another chance. So just pay attention to that whole glob right there. Now, next up, we have our deep league ads for you guys that play in deeper fantasy leagues. First up, may not even be a deep league ad anymore, but Joe Boyle on the Rays. He was called up to kind of be the piggyback for Drew Rasmussen as the Rays try to taper down Drew Rasmussen's workload over the second half of the season. So we're going to get Joe Boyle working in 4 to 6 inning stints following Drew Rasmussen in games. That's an amazing situation for Boyle, because he's going to get to miss the top of the order, and then even without pitching 5 innings, we'll have an opportunity to get wins. That's potentially a fantasy monster, especially when it's a guy like Boyle who's efficient. He's fixed his control problems. He strikes tons of batters out. He throws 99 miles an hour. He's awesome. You got Zach McKinstry on the Tigers, eligible third base, shortstop, outfield. A great piece of glue for your roster, who's hitting well, tiny bit of power, a little bit of speed, but just in the mix, near the top of the Tigers' order every single day, accumulating stats. Very similar vibe with Tyler Freeman on the Rockies. The Rockies just finished up a month where they played a lot of home games, and Freeman juiced up his OPS to like 850 with tons of stolen bases. Looks like a good player. I don't really love him that much when the Rockies are on the road. They're going to be on the road a bit more in July, but pay attention to Freeman for sure. Then we got Kumar Rocker on the Rangers, mixing up his repertoire a little bit. Went away from the slider, made him good last year. Going back with a cutter, he's better at commanding. Looking like some good results lately. I'd pick him up, take a flyer in a deep league. Bryce Matthews, top prospect for the Astros organization, getting called up this weekend. He's going to play shortstop for Jeremy Pena, who still has a slow recovery back from a fractured rib. He's got power and speed, but lots of strikeouts. So I don't know how good he will be, but if he is good, he'll have a chance to stick. They're going to run through some more quick ones here. Jansen Junk on the Marlins. Command Artisan, like his name, Junk. Throws a lot of junk, really good command. It's going to go in and out, but especially for home starts, a good streamer in a deep league. Spencer Horwitz on the Pirates. Slow recovery from a wrist injury. Now back. Tough first month, but now he's starting to hit a little bit better lately. Spencer Horwitz, the guy in most leagues, eligible at first base, second base, corner field, middle infield. Good guy to have in a roster. Probably hits well in second half. Just a good hitter who hasn't really looked it so far. Another one, Zach Geloff. He had a handmade bone injury and he fractured the rib in his rehab assignment. Now he's back. Again, Sacramento is an amazing park to hit in. I want cheap pieces of that roster in my deep leagues. Then Tommy Pham. Crazy story happening right now. Tommy Pham went to an optometrist, couldn't see, apparently had this weird eye condition, got new contacts. He's been one of the best hitters in the league over the last month since he got those contacts. That's just like a classic Tommy Pham story in the crazy lore of Tommy Pham. Then 2 more pitchers. Trevor Rogers started to look a little bit like the 2021 version of Trevor Rogers. Velocity's ticking up. He's had a couple good starts with the Orioles here, and we'll have an opportunity to pitch the entire second half because that rotation is terrible. And Richard Fitz, just recalled by the Red Sox, a bit more of a crowded rotation, but he is pitching well, and he does have some really good stuff, especially a good fastball. Now, I've given you guys tons of players to add, so I have to give you some to drop. I'm going to start out with a crazy one. I'm kind of ready to drop Ozzy Albies. Maybe he has a good second half. I jumped the gun on Marcus Semien too early, but Albies looks lost. The Braves team looks sad. They're going to sell some pieces at the deadline. I don't know. 10-team league, you could probably find a better second baseman than Albies right now. Drew Rasmussen, same. I just mentioned the fact that the Rays are going to limit his workload through the second half, at least for like a month or so, with Joe Boyle as his piggyback. It's not really viable to keep Rasmussen on your team in either 10 or even a 12-team league. He's only pitching like 1 to 3 innings at a time, which doesn't make sense. Clark Schmidt's getting Tommy John surgery. Get him out of here. Max Muncy's been the IL with a knee sprain. Supposed to be out at least another month. I don't know if I want to hold Max Muncy for a month. Maybe if you have an IL spot, you can, but if you have better IL stashes, maybe not. Josh Young, third baseman of the Rangers, got sent down to the minor leagues. Disaster. Jacob Lopez on the Athletics has come back down to earth a little bit, and really at the end of the day, well, I do kind of like Lopez, and I do kind of like his stuff. That park in Sacramento is really, really, really difficult to pitch in, especially for a fly ball pitcher like Lopez. I really don't like thinking about that through July and August, these hot summer months. Then a few more here. This Yankees glut at first base DH that's comprised right now of Ben Rice, Paul Goldschmidt, and Giancarlo Stanton. It's kind of hard to roster any of them right now because no one's playing every single day. I was really excited when Ben Rice got his catcher eligibility, was mixing in there more often for Austin Wells. Now Wells has begun to hit again, and Rice kind of just lost all the playing time. Then Goldschmidt loses a few starts a week to Rice. Giancarlo plays 4-ish days a week. Again, if you're not in a deep league, it's really hard to justify rostering basically any of them. Then Mick Abel of the Phillies sent down to the minor leagues. Good chance he gets traded, though, so maybe a good guy to stash for that stash list, a little bonus. And then Ben Kasparius and the Dodgers, one of the favorites from this channel this season, but he got bombed bombed a few times, and now he's back more of a traditional relief role rather than, like a bulk bullpen role, piggybacking on starters. All right, guys, thank you so much. That was this week's waiver wire video. Just some programming updates. We head to the All-Star break. Probably not going to do a video middle of this week, just with the All-Star break happening. We'll have something ready for you guys next Saturday. I'm thinking either a refresher of the reliever rankings or maybe something like 5 breakout hitters I trust. So I'm going to decide between those two. Maybe get down in the comments. Tell me which of those you'd rather see. Any other video ideas you guys have? Anything else you want to see? I'm going to rate and review teams. Do that again. Maybe just answer questions another week or two. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you follow my Twitter, which is in the description for this video, so you can be involved in that video. But again, thank you guys so much. I'll see you next time.